Hello and welcome for another standard deck tech for Brothers War, and we'll discuss another twist or version of a blue-white aggro deck, which they call it is a blue-white or Azorius Blink by Eternal Dryer Machine. This was a usual submitted deck list, MTG Goldfish, and we're going to spec some of the usual creatures that was added in this format because of this consistency of having this kind of creature choices, as well as some spells that we may see in other similar deck builds. But why do we call this one as a Blink? Probably because of this card that is included, which they call it as a Hollow Respite. So this is from Midnight Hunt Rare. It's a 1 white and 1 blue casting cost for sorcery. Exile target non-legendary creature, then return it to battlefield under its owner's control. If it's entered under your control, you may put a counter on it. Otherwise, tap it. So it also has a flashback for 1 colorless generic mana and 1 blue and 1 white. But it's still a good card for a rare. Just unusual that we have it as a sorcery, given that the term is Blink. So when we refer to this, it mostly goes with the instant speed, or at any time you can cast it. But we're just going to stick this one because this is probably the best choice for this deck archetype. And so we'll have 4 copies of this in the deck. So we'll now proceed now to discuss all the creature choices and what this benefit of having this creatures blinks with this lineup. We're gonna go with first with Elder Channeler. Let's check the card. It's 4 copies in the deck, so that's the ability that enters the battlefield. You can choose one to create a 1/1 white bird creature token with flying, or you turn another target non-permanent to its owner's hand, or you may draw a card. It's not really a good attacker for it because of its 2/1 ability. Let me just change the art. It's a 3-2 cast for 2/1. It's not really that aggressive, but because of its support ability that can basically bounce out any target non-permanent, so it's going to go benefit, and what we refer to as utility, because you can create more of another attacker. In that way, these bird creature tokens can go above the creature's defense or the opponent's defense, and so deal chunks of damage that can later on be used to just basically fly out for the win for this one. So we have 4 copies of this in the deck. Next up, we also have Ambitious Farmhand. This is probably the mana ramp or the mana fix of the deck, because you can enter the battlefield, you may search the library for basic plain cards and reveal it with your hand. The bonus here is that whenever you get this Coven ability, pay 1 generic and bite white, transform this activation if you control 3 or more creatures with different power. So if you're able to pull out this one, you get to this version of a 3/3 lifelink, Season Cathar, which is probably a good humanoid attacker at the same time with a solid body for a 3/3, just by paying for its Coven transform ability. So 4 copies of this, and at the same time to make sure that you will get your 3rd land drop by having this one in your 2nd turn. Along with it, we also have several copies of Defilers, 1 copy of Defiler of Dreams, and 2 copies of Defiler of Fate. Now, to discuss all of this ability, that's why you would choose to add this kind of features in the deck, because of the ability that you can basically have some of your blue permanents cast to pay 2 life instead of paying the blue mana. And whenever you cast a blue permanent spell, you will draw a card, so it's also a good flying on itself, and gets you to draw cards and lets your permanent spells 1 blue mana less to cast. So 1 copy of this, the same function with Defiler of Fate, except that it's a 5/5 vigilance. It's a good attack and defense in its own, and a bonus that whenever you cast a white permanent spell, you will create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So more creatures on your board at the same time. You get to pay 2 life instead to lessen out 1 mana cost of your white permanent spells you cast. So along with it, we have Specialist. This is sort of benefitable also with the TB effects, because you can return target creature with mana value 2 or less or graveyard to the battlefield. Its only drawback is that the creature can attack or block for as long as you control Specialist. But when those creatures that are returned, you will notice that these types of creatures as mana value, for example this one, already has ETB effects, so it won't really matter if they want attack or block, as long as their ETB triggers would happen, then you get to benefit from those. Also this one we also have result reinforcements, the same function that the extraction specialist can also return and get the benefit from. So 2 copies of those, which also a good 3-2 lifelink on its own. Then we also have 3 copies of Inspiring Overseer. The good news here is that it's not really a good 3-drop by its own, but the benefit is that you can get 1 life and you will draw a card or a cantrip in its own, and a 2-1 flying body for an aerial attack, for example. Now, for the instance that would need to do some combat math or combat race, you would get the benefit of this because of its evasion effect. Would not really go with what initial chunk of damage that would be dealt. But the good thing is that when comboed with this Hull Respite, you get the benefit more because you get additional life gain and draw a card in the process. So with that support of those creatures, reverse creatures here, we have 3 copies of Lunarch Veteran. So it is just a 1-drop for 1 from Minute Hunt, but its ability that whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you will gain 1 life. So this is just a Soul Warden with the Disturb, but whenever you get to disturb this one, it has its ability that becomes a 1-1 flying instead. And whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, you will gain 1 life. So another benefit for a blink effect, leaving the battlefield and entering the battlefield will gain you tons of life, and at the same time gets the benefit in combat damage rates if needed. So 3 copies of those. Then we have 4 copies of Resolute Reinforcement, as mentioned earlier. We have these 2-drop functions of creating another token or 1-1 and searching for a land. Same functioning and going with a curve. Now we also have Welcoming Vampire with 3 copies of these. It's a 3 to cast 2/3 flying whenever 1 or more other creatures with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control. You will draw a card. So a freebie card draw, a 2/3 flyer also. And just only drawback is that it would only trigger once its turn. So we would really have to do the abuse of drawing a ton of cards with its creature and then enters the battlefield. But the benefit is that it would really have a source for a card draw and additional gas in your mid game to late game plan. Now for your instance, that we will also go to the support, we have 4 copies of Fading Hope. Just really a basic bounce that has a benefit of also scrying the top cards and cleaning up your card draws. Then with sorcery, we also have a copy of Consuming Tide. This is just a start of our reset button card because you will just return unlanded permanent you control and then return all those that are not chosen this way to their source hand. Then you will draw a card for each opponent who has more cards than their hand than you. So given an aggro scenario, most of the time your opponents will really have those permanents or big casting cost spells like enchantments and artifacts back to their hand, and then you will just get the benefit to draw a card for each opponent who has more counts. So still a good cantrip and also a reset button for their certain scenarios. Then again, for Hollow Despite, we have 4 copies and 2 copies of Sunset Library as a support sorcery, wherein if opponent has more life than you will gain 4 life. If an opponent controls more creatures than you will create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens, and at the same time, if an opponent has more cards in hand than you will draw a card. So 2 copies of those. That's basically having to get the benefit in certain scenarios. So just having these 2 copies is barely the minimum or probably the ideal of the count, wherein you would need really to have this one on your turn too, and maybe for matchups like Monored, or for example, that you would need to have to cast to gain more life and have a 2/2 white human creature tokens as blockers. So last but not least, the lands, 23 lands, basically consists of fixing. He did the budget because he didn't go with the Deserted Beach, but I suggest he would go on this instead of just having a Darker Waste and Tranquil Cove on this one. So we can add a Deserted Beach on this build to change the lineup for Tranquil Cove. So 4 copies of this, and also check out the art to change the art in a certain scenario. This one, okay. So that's probably the ideal land that the deck would have, and maybe for some of the mana fix of this fetch land for Obscura Storefront. I don't really have this one, or we can just go with utility cards such as the Palace in the Sky, Day 1, and Iganju for some channel spells that you can use for this deck. So overall, the mana cost is 2.43. So that's going between 2 and 3 mana cost. Color distribution, we have 16 for blue and 29 for white. So basically, good all white deck with blue for splash and probably 13 mana source for blue and 16 for white. For the tokens, we just only have 3 kinds. This one is the solar token, human for a 1/1, and bird token from Dominaria United. So I guess that's about it for this deck. It's pretty much a very basic aggro deck, but goes with the benefit of some utility creatures, some good all ETB effects, and some blinking that not really sorcery speed blinking, but still a good idea nonetheless. So that's about it. If you like this video, just like on subscribe button on the lower right of your screen, along with the notification bells on for more of this MTG related content for Standard Brothers War. Thank you for watching this video and listening for this deck tech. Until the next time, see ya.